Thank you so much, and welcome everybody back to the second session of the day. And now we're going to explore the fascinating issue of the current impact of artificial intelligence on creative production. In this next session, drawing on her experiences at Vinted, Annie is going to discuss the current AI offerings for creative production and explore also how they've influenced the industry so far. Please welcome Annie Maschia.
Thanks, Paul. As the screen says, I'm here to speak with you about artificial intelligence and its impact on creative production, looking at the good, the bad, and the unknown. So first of all, let's have a little intro, because probably you're wondering who I am and why I'm supposed to be able to talk to you about this topic, because arguably no one knows much about it as of today. So I'm Annie. I manage the creative production team at Vinted, which is the largest secondhand marketplace app in Europe. As an in-house team of 8 producers, with our external partners, we create a lot of campaigns, including out-of-home, TV, social media platform campaigns, which get localized and iterated every day around 19 countries. Like many of you here, I'm facing the challenge of needing to create growing amounts of content without necessarily being able to scale my team. So during this presentation, I will be drawing directly from my own experience looking at the tools that represent potential solutions to this challenge and at the risks that are posed by this technology. So without further ado, let's get started. First of all, why are we here? Well, we're here because in the past 10 months, this happened. Thanks to generative AI, Pope Francis started wearing puffer jackets and trendy sneakers. There's images going around the web that show Putin, Kim Jong-un, Elon Musk having fun at the Holi Festival. There's countless weird, deformed AI-generated hands recently that we've all seen. All of this wasn't on our radar only 10 months ago. And now, in the space of less than a year, we're grappling with the fact that this new technology could actually represent both an incredible advancement and a scary new reality within the creative industries. With this in mind, let's get into the agenda for today. So first of all, we're going through what is generative AI. After that, we're going to look at the good that we can extract from this technology, the bad, unpacking the issues that we might encounter when it comes to usage rights, copyright, privacy law, some ethical questions, and the unknown, answering the question of how to deal with what's coming next and retain our sanity in this process. In the end, we're going to go through some practical tips to keep ourselves up to date and to make sure that while we're testing and experimenting with these new tools, we're not running the risk of doing something illegal or unethical. So, what is generative AI? Most of you already know it. It's a type of artificial intelligence that enables users to very quickly generate new content based on a variety of inputs. With it, you can create text, images, sound, animation, 3D models, much more. The generative AI word has been actually a buzzword for the past 10 months, with the general public getting to know about the capabilities of ChatGPT, the chatbot by OpenAI, at the end of November 2022. So to give you an idea of how popular this is, ChatGPT saw 100 million users flock to the platform during just the first 2 months after its launch. As of today, we're seeing new tools being launched by the minute, and many of us are making use of these systems every single day. There's constant updates, improvements that can make most of us feel like it's hard to keep track of the latest developments, which kind of contributes to the general feeling, especially in the creative industries, that this technology is coming for us rather than here to help us. So let's get into what we're all here for. Let's look at the good and how generative AI can actually help us. The good. So I think a lot of you can relate to what I'm about to say. At Vinted, as in-house agency, we do create some exciting new content. Think big 360 campaigns, new feature launches, anything that is basically a new master type of content. So cool online video, user-generated content. This is all great, it's fun, but it's roughly just 20% of our daily work lives. So what is the other 80%? The other 80% is what we call the grind. The grind is what allows us to deliver at scale, though. So think of localizations. In our case, it's more than 19 countries at a time. For example, also iterations of existing content, usage renewals, contracts, admin, anything that we do around creating the exciting new content that we get to create 20% of the time. So this part of the job is not often fun. That's why it's called the grind, but that's life. So how do we make our life a little bit less painful? The answer is, like in most other situations, by looking for help. So in this case, AI is literally our best opportunity to tackle this mountain of daily tasks and streamline to the maximum every single part of what we might not like the most about our job. Especially when we're required to grow the amount of content that we create. So in a moment, we're going to look at 4 different areas where we can leverage AI. These will be asset management, localization, post-production, and not necessarily strictly part of the grind, but creative development, which might be pleasant, but also in some cases goes on for much longer than ideal. So AI can actually help us speed that up. So looking into asset management, here's a few examples of what we're looking at Vinted in terms of what AI could help us with. Content tagging, taxonomy creation, visual search. When I say that, I mean, for example, finding assets that are similar between each other within our system. Prevention of asset duplication. Think of content hygiene, avoiding using storage mindlessly, and then the creation of metadata. So there are plenty of products released in the past year that can help us with all of this. Most of them don't present many legal or privacy issues, and they're used internally for admin purposes only. So that can really make in-house producers and content managers' life a lot easier without running a lot of risk, really. An example of an app could be Clarify, an only one product, which allows you to do all of the above. Little disclaimer, every company has a different structure, different workflows when it comes to content management. So this is just one of the many options available, and I'm not promoting it. So this is just about us knowing that something like Clarify exists, and it can be a good starting point for each one of us in terms of research, if we want to find something that is more suitable for a company, for example. So to give you an idea of roughly what you can get by implementing this type of system, there's data that shows that you can reduce tagging errors by something like 80%, and you can tag assets 90 to 100 times faster than what you would if you did it manually. So you also can find content much quicker. There's a whole lot of benefits if you start using these kind of programs. So yeah, this is just one of them, but hopefully you will find many more to test. Next one, let's look into localization. So this is something that can be helpful for post producers, but also for localizations managers. There's a few different areas where we are looking into AI, not necessarily automated voiceover, because that is not at the right level yet in terms of the technology. Like, it just doesn't sound really realistic unless you use an actual person's voice to train the model, which is not necessarily always legal. So what we're using it for mostly, or what we're actually looking at, is machine translation, workflow automation, quality checks, and analytics. So, machine translation might not be perfect, but in our case, we're testing it especially when it comes to very fast burn digital performance content like UGC, TikTok. Basically anything that needs to be done quickly, doesn't represent a high risk because the campaigns stay on for a very short amount of time. In this case, your content will still need to be checked and edited by a copywriter, but the process will be a lot quicker than going for human translation. When it comes to workflow automation, we're talking about AI-powered features, where we really see the augmentative power of AI with all of our workflows. Increasing translation quality checks. Let's say you have a tool, you implement it, and you can train it to be the quality police of your text by onboarding it on your tone of voice, do's and don'ts, and more. and analytics. So you can definitely get tailored dashboards to create reports very, very quickly. As I mentioned, we're not going to look into automated voiceover. A few examples of programs and tools that could be good for this that we're all exploring are Phrase, Localize, which is actually integrated with ChatGPT, and Papercup. So they all have quite different offerings, but they all offer some of these services and can really, really help with localization content to be streamlined. So the next point, our implementation area number 3, is post-production. Now, it doesn't matter if you've got post-production in-house or if it's fully outsourced. This area is one to keep an eye on since advancements are happening literally by the hour. We could spend just a whole 10-hour presentation just talking about the different options that we have here. So for the sake of keeping this quick and simple, I reduced the examples to just one, which is at the moment the safest app from a legal standpoint, which obviously is Adobe Firefly. Most of you will have heard about it. So to refresh your memory, Firefly is both a standalone web app and a family of AI models that are integrated within Adobe apps like Photoshop, Premiere, After Effects. It has an endless amount of features, but in short, the most impressive thing that you can do is basically just tell Firefly to do something via text. For example, delete a person in the background of an image, and it will just do it without you having to even touch any brushes, for example, in Photoshop. So just a few things that Firefly can do. It can refill and recolor. It can, create something text to image, 3D to image, image to image, extend images. So for example, you have an image, but you want to extend it. AI will just create something very similar to make it realistically look broader. So just seamlessly creating a new format. The reason why I'm showing specifically only Firefly is because it's the safest one to use. A lot of the other apps that are at the moment available for different things that you can do in post-production might present some issues in the way that they're trained. We're going to talk about this later. But basically, this is the best one at the moment that we are looking into. So one more, creative development. Now, when it comes to creative development, what I mean is, something that is not necessarily only relevant to producer, but also to any creative within the team. We are looking at tools that can be sparring partners for a creative, like we call them at Vinted, either speeding up or enhancing the development phase of any project, which in turn can shorten delivery timings, doing a favor also to producers. There's a few examples that I'm going to go through. I'm not going into the details of each one of them, but they're all starting to be quite widely used to streamline the creative process. So in this case, not only ChatGPT is good, but also for idea generation and development, copy editing, and quicker visual referencing for the generation of storyboards, for example. These are all products that are being used by creatives around the world. All of them have very different characteristics. Some of them are a little bit better for marketing copy. Some are better for campaigns and creative copy. So it really depends what you want to do. And one of them will probably fit the bill. And now, very quickly, let's move into the bad. I'm using some interesting AI-generated images with very creepy hands to give you an idea of how bad is the bad. So a lot of this is creepy. I just wanted to address the elephant in the room here. Some of it is really quite uncanny. So this is a screenshot from an app that I stumbled upon the other day. It claims to make you basically God. You can create hyper-realistic full body photos of people in real time. These people obviously don't exist. They are just AI generated, and you just click on a button, click on create human for free, and you can create a human. I mean, it sounds amazing, also really kind of scary, but jokes aside, there's 3 main risks that we need to look at and they are all quite important to really be aware of. The first one, obviously, is copyright law infringement. The key question for this is, how are some of these models trained? So this is always something that you need to ask yourself before you work with any tool, especially when it comes to generative AI for like the creation of images or video. Let's think of Dall-e or Midjourney. In the tips part of this presentation, which is the last one, where we're going to look at practical ways to actually tackle some of these issues, we're going to look at ways to actually cover ourselves from any risks in terms of copyright law infringement. Privacy law infringement, let's think of deep fakes. In this case, we're not only looking at systems that have been trained by using artists' work that was not cleared from a copyright point of view, but we're also looking at, for example, people's faces, bodies, voices, and the fact that if we want to create content that maybe uses someone's voice and face, we just cannot do whatever we want with our features. And then ethical dilemmas. Again, this is part of two things that I've discussed before. All of a sudden, as an industry, we're kind of asked to look into issues that before were not necessarily actually issues, or things that we were worrying about. So there's always a double sort of problem here to look at: the law side of things and the ethical side of things. So on one side, you want to do stuff that is legal for your company. On the other, you don't want to put your company in a place where that could be recognized as someone or a company that has an unethical behavior towards artists, for example, or towards talent. So here's a very quick example of how good deepfakes have become. This is an amazing, actually, AI tool that is able to immediately do dialogue replacement if you want to, for example, change what someone is saying on video, if you want to localize it immediately to a different language. What it does, it maps someone's face in the space of a few seconds, and it just recreates the video with the right type of speech based on what you've requested. So I'll just show it, and it will last about 10 seconds.
Now we're stuck on this stupid tower in the middle of nowhere, and I don't blame you, and now we're stuck on this stupid freaking tower in the middle of freaking nowhere, and it's all my fault. 軽蔑してるよね。仕方ないよ。Y es todo por mi culpa.
So this is obviously amazing technological advancement, but at the same time is something that within the European Union, for example, and also in many other countries, we cannot actually use as of now without having the ethical dilemma there, and also without doing something that might go against privacy laws. If someone wants to sign a contract where you can do absolutely anything you want with their face, their voice, and their bodies, fine, but that's gonna be extremely rare. So yeah, this is just for you to know basically where the technology is at the moment, but also what the limits are in terms of what is legally feasible. The European Union is the area in the world that is kind of moving forward the quickest with trying to create regulations for this. But also China and the United States are moving forward as quickly as possible. So we will see further developments soon. But at the moment, these kind of tools, for example, in our case, we're not able to use them. We know they exist, but they're not yet, or maybe ever, going to be used in our case. Lastly, last couple of minutes, let's look into the unknown. So some things we cannot control. We don't know how this technology is going to evolve, how quickly. We don't know if it's going to take all of our jobs, which is unlikely based on what we know for now. But what we can do is actually build knowledge and try as much as we can to stay up to date, to become AI literate, to stay AI literate, and to not basically just stop getting updated and starting to feel like this is out of our control. The more we know about it, the less uncanny it will be. So here's a few very practical tips based on what we have done at Vinted so far to tackle some of the bad that I just presented. First of all, to avoid legal issues, you have to update your third-party contracts. Most of you will have done it already. There's two key things that you need to do if you are outsourcing any sort of creative or technical work, which is, first of all, step one, update the clause on third-party IP rights infringement that is already likely in your contracts by requiring that your external collaborators inform you beforehand if any deliverables are created by using generative AI tools, even if they're just part of their workflow. And the step two is to make sure that your agreements have your confidentiality and privacy provisions already likely in there, but including specifications mentioning deepfakes explicitly. These are the two steps that should cover you if you are not using any of these tools necessarily in-house, but if you're working with third parties, and then your responsibility is basically, that is basically not your responsibility anymore if they don't use any of these items. What tools are safe to use? Well, there's two main tools at the moment. If we think about specifically the creation of images and videos, Adobe, obviously. So anything that comes out of Adobe should be fine in terms of how it's trained. So if you want to generate images, if you want to generate videos, if you want to use Firefly, the way these kind of tools are trained is just based on content that has been cleared. When it comes to Dall-e, or for example, Midjourney, that is not the case. So you should always double check. But Adobe, from what we know, is the safest, together with something that just launched yesterday. So I added it in the presentation very last minute, which is generative AI by Getty, which is able to create stills and videos, which is really positioning itself as the safest option in the market because it is getting trained using the massive amount of royalty-free images that Getty Images has at the moment and is powered by NVIDIA. So lastly, do I need to know how to use all of these tools as someone who works in production, for example, in-house or in an advertising agency? Obviously not, if you outsource. As far as you have those contract provisions, you should be safe. And lastly, how do you keep up to date? So there's really two main things that I would suggest here. First of all, Ben's Bites. This is a quite famous newsletter and is also a web page. Every single day, they share a wide range of updates from all over the web about the latest developments in AI, and it's absolutely phenomenal. It covers everything and anything. It's not specific to production or to creative, but a lot of stuff that is happening at the moment within this area is related to visuals or sounds or like multimedia. So there's quite a lot of updates every day just on that. And generative AI timeline, which is, if you want the context, basically the best way to know what's going on at all times. And that's it. If you have any questions, you can reach out via email as well. And
Yes.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Annie. That was fantastic. It's every time we talk about this subject, right? We learn so much and get just such interesting perspectives, and especially interesting to hear yours from the other side of the globe, from where I'm sitting, right? And just like what's happening in your world and all that. I'm curious. We have a couple of great questions from the audience as well, but I'm curious: are you getting support from your upper management to use this technology? Are they pushing you in that direction, or is it more kind of coming from your team and working its way up to them?
I would say it comes more from higher management, in the sense that in the case of Vinted, we are a tech company first and foremost. So obviously, anything that is a new tech advancement, we will be pushing it all the way from higher management down. But also my team is quite excited about it, especially because of the grind, like having to deal with so many iterations and localizations. So yeah, I think it goes both ways.
Right. So from the audience, do you think it's ever going to be possible to police this, or will technology always be one step ahead of our ability to police it?
My humble opinion, because obviously I don't know the answer. I think technology will likely be one step ahead because, creating regulations is always a little bit slow, and technology at the moment is changing and evolving by the hour. So I don't think laws will be able to catch up to a level where they're earlier than tech.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen, to your point in your slide about creative development, I think that's been the place that I've seen the most impact, like kind of immediately, right? Because it's the old model of kind of looking through magazines and tearing out pictures and samples and whatnot, or sort of Frankensteining in Photoshop some kind of body composition or group of people for something like in our world, like a key art for a movie or a series. Was it just a laborious process that take a lot of time and a lot of energy and multiple people. And now you can kind of quickly get to something sort of good enough to sort of present, right? But not only get what you're sort of expecting, but also get other ideas, things that might take you in a different direction completely because the machine kind of added something to what you asked it to do, right? But another question from the audience, do you worry about kind of creative quality that'll get lost and that will sort of settle for good enough?
100%. This is an ongoing conversation with our creatives, actually, within the company as well. And creative quality could suffer. It could not. We obviously don't know. There is theories on the internet, in some obscure parts of the internet, if you like to go on Reddit and stuff, saying that AI will choke on its own exhaust and just create really low quality stuff soon. There's other theories which are he will just get better and better and beat us all on whatever creative we want to do. So it could go either way. We're definitely a bit worried about that. So there always needs to be a little bit of oversight from a human being just to make sure that, especially when it comes to referencing, things are done right.
Yeah. Also curious from your side of the world, are you guys paying attention, and are you specifically paying attention to the kind of that content authenticity, initiatives that are out there? Adobe is definitely a big proponent of that. Just in terms of if you make something using this technology, that it's somehow noted inside the file header or in the metadata of the file so that you can't just kind of make up a photo without it being tagged somehow, even if it's invisible, but tagged somehow that it has been manipulated by AI.
Well, we're being extremely careful because obviously, as a company, we don't also want to be recognized as someone who, does something that is not good for artists' livelihoods. So in our case, we actually do not use any AI-generated content for marketing that goes outside the company. We just use these kind of tools internally when it comes to generating images and videos, just purely for referencing. And then whatever goes outside, even the smallest performance content will be created from scratch, like it used to happen just before AI. We are using AI mostly in terms of augmentative technology for processes and, what is the grind in terms of post-production or anything that is related to image or asset management and stuff like that.
Right. I'm actually really interested in where this goes with large media companies and other sort of large companies that have millions of assets of their own development from history or historical TV shows that they own, or huge libraries of photography or branding assets and whatnot, so that you could use this technology not out on the internet, but use it within your own sort of asset pool to create more relevant company content that isn't necessarily infringing on anybody else's copyright because it's only leveraging its own copyrighted material.
And I think you should be able to do it fairly soon, because I know that some companies like Dall-e, for example, are looking into like potentially working with companies on that. So I imagine that, you will be in a future able to just train your own system to create your own reference images if you want to, by using library material if you own it. So that's definitely not impossible even today.
And what do you think about just like the licensing model for this technology, right? Like, are people or are you expecting these features to be added for free, to applications to use like Photoshop, or is this something you think companies will have to invest heavily in their ability to utilize this tech?
what the future will be like, but at the moment, companies are paying for NVIDIA and Adobe. So I think it will be, it might be just features that get added to already existing paid apps and tools. I haven't seen anything that is done fully for free that companies are using, unless it's like the actual, Dall-e or Midjourney. So things that actually are open to the open public, but might not be legal to use when it comes to marketing. So far, it seems to be part of something that will be paid for.
Yeah. All right, we're out of time, Annie. Thank you so much. This was an incredible session, and thanks everybody for joining. Great job. Hope to see you soon. And that's it. We'll see you at the next session.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.